Hi everyone, I hope you're all keeping safe and well and have enjoyed week 1 of your home learning. This week in year 1 we are all entomologists. Entomologists are people who study insects. Today I'll be walking you through how we do GSR at George Spicer in year 1. This presentation will show you the importance of the build-up to reading and will be a helpful tool for the children as well as parents so that you can familiarise yourself with some of the strategies we use. Feel free to pause this video at any time. It will remain on the channel so you can always come back to watch different steps on different days. This is a typical week of GSR when we are in school. So on the Monday we introduce a new book, we do the background knowledge, vocabulary, sight words and phonics. On the Tuesday we then repeat these, especially the vocabulary, sight words and phonics, and we move on to the reading for meaning, a teacher class read aloud and then independent reading. This is also repeated on the Wednesday. Then on the Thursday, if needed, the children will finish off their reading and we'll make a start on the written comprehension. On the Friday, it's time for them to finish off the written comprehension and then we move on to oral comprehension and summarising of what we have read that week. It's okay if how you do it at home does not follow this structure daily, but it's important that you do try to follow as many of the steps possible before jumping straight into reading the book. So we start off with the background knowledge around the book. This gives the children the chance to explore what it could be about and come up with some of their own predictions and ideas using the questions and the sentence stems shown on the screen. We encourage the children to think about the title, look at the front cover and then share their ideas with a partner and then the whole class. If you pause the video now, it will allow you to sometimes come up with your own predictions before I share mine. Try your best to use the sentence stems I wonder if or I predict. Remember to use the conjunction because to explain your thinking further. So my prediction is that I wonder if the book is about insects because the word buzz reminds me of the noise that bees and flies make when they fly close by. Also by looking at the picture, that also gives me a big clue that it could be about insects also. So now we're on to the vocabulary. For this we choose words that are mentioned in the book the children may be unfamiliar of. This not only helps them to expand their vocabulary, but it also reflects on their comprehension and understanding of the book that they are reading. We recap our vocabulary words often and encourage the children to use them throughout the week within a range of contexts. Remember, year 1, when we do this, we read all of the words first before we start matching to help us. When we have a match, we draw one line to show it. If you're up for a challenge, maybe you could use one of these new words in a sentence. So we have antennae, we have hatch, predator, burrow and pollen. Now have a think in your head and see if you know what any of these words mean. Use the pictures there to help you. Are there any clues that they can give you? And see how you get on. Next we move on to our tricky words. These are words that we have to recognise by sight as the rules of phonics does not apply. For example, the dark blue word here would read as some if we sounded it out phonetically, which we know is not the real word, we know it says some. When doing this, I often say a colour and then ask the children to read the word. To make it more fun, we do it in different voices, such as quiet voices, loud voices, whisper voices, baby voices, and so on. We can give it a go all together now. Are you ready? The pink word. Can you whisper the red word? In a big voice, can you do the yellow word? In a baby voice, can you do the blue word? And so on. We usually repeat this slide so that the children have more exposure to the tricky words they will see in the book. If you are particularly struggling with a particular word, you can make it into a flashcard like we do with our phonics sounds and put it in different places around the house to increase the exposure. Then there is a phonics focus. So these words are all in the book. So here it says, what do you notice about all of these words? Can you spot the odd one out? Before I say anything more, see if you can give it a go. Please pause the video now. So as you may have noticed, all of these words have the O sound, however they are represented in different ways. For example, in the word snow, the O sound is shown as an OW digraph, whereas in the word soak, it's shown as an OA digraph. It's also represented as a phoneme, a single phoneme, such as in the word no and ago, and so on. It's also shown as a split digraph, which is in the word home, home. Can you spot the odd one out? Well, in the word snow, the O sound is making the O sound. However, if I read this word, does that sound right to you? No, that makes my brain go, Let me try again in a different way. So I know that digraph can also make the ow sound. Let's try that one. Now, immediately my brain going, I know that's a real word and that one sounds better. So I'm going to go with flower. So in the word flower, it's making the ow sound despite the spelling being the same as it is in the O sound. This is one example of the importance of remembering to use our alternative sound when reading if it doesn't make sense the first time. We then quickly recap the phonics sounds that are in the book. So here I've written a lot of the sounds, however in a normal lesson there would be a focus on a sole few. The sounds we choose are often picked on the sounds we know our group may struggle with, so it's important to make sure we expose the children to alternative sounds as well as, for example, the Y making the I sound, such as in the word fly, or the C making the sh sound, such as in the word special. The G making the j sound, such as in changes. I'd encourage you to go through the coloured digraphs with your child. You can do this like we did with the tricky words with the colours. For example, what does the yellow one say? And then if you find any that they find harder to retain, you could always make these as flashcards as shown on the video in a moment. This will help your child to remember the sound and make sure to encourage them to find it within words in the books as well. So if you find that your child is struggling with a particular sound, you can always make them as flashcards from pieces of paper like this, where you write the sound up, and then throughout the day you can do let's do quick flashcards. What does this one say? What does that one say? And so on. Similar to what you could do with any tricky words as well as. So there comes on to the reading for meaning. So these are the reading strategies we use to help us. The children are familiar with these, and before reading we ask them to remind us of some of the things we do to help us to read. Before I start going through them, I wonder if you could tell your grown-up 5 of the things we do to help us read now. Please pause the video here. So the first reading strategy is sounding out and blending, making sure we're using our phonics for words we do not know by sight. For example, ship. Our second strategy is reading some words by sight without sounding them out. So those would be the ones that we mentioned earlier on our tricky words page, remembering that we cannot apply our phonics to something, and if we know the word, we need to make sure we apply it within our reading too to help improve our fluency. Our third one is rereading the sentence. If you have sounded out lots of words, do not read like a robot. For example, if I said, we read the sentence, if you have I sound very robotic, so I'd make sure that when I finish that sentence, I would go back to the beginning, read it again and check it makes sense. Our fourth one is making sure that we point to the words as we read, using our reading finger if we need to. This helps us to maintain our focus and our fluency also. Our fifth one is using the pictures. So if you're unsure of a word and you're trying to figure out what it might mean, what it might say, make sure you're looking at the pictures that go with that page to try and figure out what it could potentially be. Our next one is using our background knowledge, so that's kind of the stuff that we mentioned in the beginning, making sure we're remembering our vocabulary that we mentioned. Was it one of the words that was on our vocabulary page that we're not sure of? That might help us to remember what it could mean or say. Our next one is reading all of the sentence, what would make sense. So we're going to come on to that one in a moment, but it's reading on to find meaning. So if we got stuck on a particular word, finishing off that sentence and then coming back to that word to see what that word could potentially be. And our last one is do not read on if it does not make sense, because it's important that even if we can read a sentence very fluently, we understand what it says and what it might mean, as that will help to aid our comprehension also. So some weeks we place a heavier focus on 1 or 2 reading strategies we feel the children may need more practice on. A new skill we were recently developing while still at school was reading on to find meaning. So like I said, that's when we're not sure of a word that may be in the middle of a sentence and we finish off reading that sentence to make more sense of it and then come back to that word to figure out what it could potentially be.